Hello, awesome folks. I hope you're having an amazing day today. Today we're taking a look at the book The Children of Húrin by j.r.r. Tolkien. It was published posthumously by the famous guy. It's set in his legendarium in the Middle-earth era. It's set in the first age, and it tells the tragedy of the two children of Húrin, a man who is captured by Morgoth after going to war with him early on in the book, like in the first chapter, second chapter. Then he is cursed by Morgoth after he refuses to help him out, and he curses him and his family, and then this novel then will tell the story then of this curse. Now this book starts on, if you look at the page count in this oversized book, it's about 260 pages long, but it actually starts after the preludes and stuff on page 35. So there's really just 225 pages roughly in this, and I knocked this out very quickly, actually, in about 4 days, an hour and a half each day, except for Thursday, which was Monday Night Football. I'm sorry, rather Thursday Night Football on Amazon. So I watched that so I only put an hour into that, but I knocked it out pretty quickly in less than 6 hours, which is actually pretty quick for an oversized book like this. They tend to be thicker. I tend to find them to be thicker to read, but I was knocking this out at about 40 pages an hour. Which is pretty quick clip, not an oversized collection like that. It's also Tolkien, and Tolkien tends to be a slower read for me too. Like when I went back and reread the Tolkien Reader and the books and the short stories in that, and the poem, and I definitely found that to be a little slower to read over time because that, even though that was book sized, and yet this one I knocked out. It's more like 30 pages, and this one's normally an oversized collection like this would normally. So I actually was surprised by how quickly I read this. For the second time for this channel, I read it when it first came out and was first published. It's edited by his son Christopher, and I knocked it out pretty quickly. I'm giving this probably like an 8 out of 10. It's definitely strong. It has a lot of fun stuff that happens in it. A lot of oh my gosh moments. It's definitely an epic story that was begun, and so basically this is telling a more expanded story of a story that was begun earlier in the legendarium. So you knew part of this story, but this is doing sort of a deeper dive into this. Now my key sort of takeaway from this, having between this read some of the sagas of the Nordic myths, is that this feels very much like a Nordic saga, if you will. It has that sort of a tragic element to it. The curse that you find out about in like chapter 2, that you see growing over the course of the novel The Children of Húrin, is definitely something that feels like it's straight out of a Nordic saga. It also which also regularly have tragic views. In a lot of their reviews, they believed that in Ragnarok the bad guys were going to win, and so all the good guys did was going to be, just fight the good fight in the end battle, right? So a lot of them have sort of this darker, more tragic elements to it. Having gone back and read some of those. So anyway, this definitely feels like that to me, going back and rereading this first edition one. So I definitely liked it a lot. It has a lot of fun stuff that happens, but it's also a quick read. You could probably knock this out in one day in 5.5 hours, right? If you really dedicated it to it, or if you did an hour and a half each day like I did, you can knock it out in 4 days, right? And without dedicating that much time to it, you could easily knock it out in a week, in 6 days, with an hour a day, if 5.5 hours. That's easy. That's easy for a lot of dedicated readers to find that time to do, and I definitely think it's worth your time. And again, I definitely enjoyed it. Now, next is going to be Beren and Luthien, which I have not gotten. I just ordered this from Amazon.com. This is also another story that is set in the First Age. It is actually referred to in the Children of Húrin. This is basically telling the story of the story of Beren and Luthien if you've read the Lord of the Rings or you've watched the movies. You know that they are a couple of a human and an elf that will fall for each other, and then they will have a tragic ending that will happen to them too. So that's the next one I'm going to be reading is Baron of Luthien. I'm going to start that today after this and hopefully knock out in another 4 days. But we'll see. I mean, as you can see, it's actually pretty thin. It's not, even though it's oversized, so it shouldn't take that long for me to knock it out either. So I picked that up on Amazon. And I'm going to be doing a deeper dive into some of these lesser known works that were published posthumously by Tolkien, as well as a couple of works that he did publish during his days. Or one work that he tried to get published but nobody ever accepted. I'm going to be knocking that out too. So I'm doing some of these lesser known works by him. If you recall, I've also done his first edition Hobbit, the one that was published before he edited it for the Lord of the Rings to change the Ring of Power. The ring that he finds in the things, and changes a couple of details about that to make it fit with the legendarium. And so I did that. I have also, which I was able to pick up as an anniversary edition. Typically, the ones that are being sold are the edited second edition. So it's also important to note that Tolkien himself edited his own stuff, just like, people got upset about, other people like George Lucas or stuff like that have gone back and edited their things and changed them back to fit with later canon. Tolkien himself did with his first novel, set in the Middle Earth era, The Hobbit. So that's kind of cool too to kind of notice that. So he changes that up, and now you're reading the second editions. I've also done a bunch of his other things, like some of his children novels, Rover Andom, that was published posthumously. That was for just his kids. I've also gone back and read some of his stuff, like Farmer Giles of Ham and The Smith of Wootton Major, and those sorts of things. Leaf by Nigel. So I've gone back and read some of those, and I've enjoyed them, and I've reviewed those for this channel. So there you are. So I'm now going to be going back and doing that again, this time for some things that are published posthumously. The Children of Húrin, the reason why I'm giving it an 8, first of all, it's a classic work, right? It definitely feels like an isolating saga. It's strong, it's not too long, but it does start a little slow with, with all these, here's who this person's family is, and here's who these people married, and here's who their children are, and like every paragraph introduces like a new family, right? That we're telling, and that's actually pretty common. Also, that sort of here's who this person's family is for the first like 3 or 4 pages. Since if it's reading it in modern times, right, you normally write. So obviously this has the benefit of being by Tolkien, being in the first edition, telling a story that we already know, but it still has that sort of a slow-paced opening, right? It reads like the first, like the opening of the chapter of the gospel, where they just have all the begats, right? And then you start with Adam, and Adam begat, Seth, and Seth begat, right? And then he married this person, and they begat this person, and so on and so forth. And it just feels like you're reading that chapter over multiple pages. Right, and so it can be a little on the boring side to get started, but it's not just gripping opening with a battle scene or something like that. It just tells the story of his family, and then his childhood is the first chapter. So that's about 20 pages long, and he's about 8 or so by the time that chapter is over with. So that's pretty cool. And again, it definitely has a faster pace to it, even though it's a deeper dive into a story that's been told. This is definitely has a deeper dive into that. It's still a fast story because it tells one person's life in like 225 pages, right? And that's actually pretty quick. Most modern novels, are probably going to tell like one person's chapter in like 500, maybe a few months or a year in like a novel. It's like 400, 500, 600 pages long, right? So having a 225 page novel that tells the story of a person and his ancillary people, like his sister and some others too, and there are these other characters too, in like just 225 pages, it's still fast paced, and that's fine. I like that it's definitely a faster novel, fast paced. You get through a lot of stuff pretty quickly. It reminds me of Michael Moorcock's writings, because he would write he might do a death scene in like a page of a major character, right? And his key books are all like 150 pages long, or shorter sometimes. All of his key stuff, and so you can easily knock out a book a day. Just knock out 150 pages a day. It's pretty quick and easy, right? And so. I definitely enjoyed, Michael Moorcock. So it sort of reminded me of me going back and reading more and reviewing Michael Moorcock for this channel, and reading some of those things. That I did too. So it's fast. You can definitely knock it out quickly. It's fast paced too, except for the beginning. But just going with it, going with that, and it's definitely well done. It definitely enjoys this sort of a longer told story of this key characters and the curse of Morgoth on this key character who survived the battle but won't betray his people. Anyway, so there you go. That's the Children of Húrin by J.r.r. Tolkien. As a reminder, these reviews are spoiler free, so if you want to talk about spoilers, let's do so in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please feel encouraged to hit that subscribe button. There's going to be a lot more of these to follow. And then finally, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day and investing it in watching my video. We all have so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions. So the fact that you spent this time with me is incredibly humbling, and I appreciate it. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.